You punch your daughter to death. So taking some time away from my regular game as a DM, I decided to play a character I wanted to enjoy for some time and a shit I saw advertised on Roll20. Brief introduction. I'm playing Markax, Golden Dragonborn Paladin who is Order of the Ancients, a perpetually happy guy who is driven by his goal to find his daughter after his wife left with her in the middle of the night. So as a credit to the DM, he actually put something into the one shot relating to my backstory. Awesome, right? We were helping out a village in which a death plague was turning the living into undead. It could only be caught by being scratched or bitten by someone infected. Basically zombies. So Markax finds his wife stowed away in the village. She's been turned into a zombie. She attacks us, and Markax regretfully puts her down. He rescues his daughter, only to find out that she's got a scratch on her. No amount of lay on hands can cure it, and she dies in his arms. The DM begins describing her convulsing, then slowly coming back as an undead. Markax wraps his arms around his child and whispers goodbye before kissing her on the head and using Divine Smite to prevent her turning. DM, you have to make an attack to Divine Smite. Oh. Well, I mean you can use it on an unarmed strike. Can we not just flavor that as a hug and a kiss? DM. Oh. So an unarmed strike? Well, kinda, Morley. DM, you wind back your huge arm and plunge it into the face of your daughter. Divine energy burns a hole in her face, and the body dissolves. Oh. The Helpful Cleric. First time I'd ever played D&D. Early days of 2nd edition. We go around the table introducing our characters. The cleric of our party vaguely describes herself as dedicated to life. We soon discover that this means she leaves her powers to keep anything from dying, including our opponents. She spends her turns in combat healing the monsters we're trying to kill. The end results are that combat takes 3 times as long as it should. We incur heavier losses, and there is little to no healing available for the party at the end of it all. No amount of argument would change her mind. I forget how we eventually rectified the problem, but I think the cleric met with a fatal accident. There was no one left in the party dedicated to life enough to bring her back. My biggest pet peeve as a DM. Hey, I play 5e D&D and have played it for the past like 3 to 4 years, mostly as a player, but more recently as a DM. I really enjoyed Ming because it feels really cool to be leading the fun and to have creative freedom in the games, but sometimes I get pretty annoyed or discouraged by one thing in particular. I don't like it when I put a lot of effort into preparing the story of a campaign and player just don't give a crap about the story at all. I've had several occasions where I'm in the middle of the story or exploration parts of the campaign and some people are literally on their phones or just not caring in general, and it gets pretty insulting. The DM takes a lot of time, or should at least, to make sure it's an interesting and fun campaign, and I make sure to have a good balance of combat, exploration, and role playing, so it really makes you feel unappreciated when people don't know where they are or what the situation is when they need to participate because they weren't paying attention. Anyway, that's my rant. What are some of your DM pet peeves or even player pet peeves? Short attention span DM. So this story isn't the worst RPG story out there, but it was one of the most silly campaigns of D&D I have ever taken part in. It's also a pretty unique issue I have never heard anyone else have. It's a story about Pad the DM. Pad was a player who always wanted to try and DM. When he was a player, he always wanted to play a new different character every session. He also would love to suggest ideas for the DM, like we should try so and so setting, or have you heard of so and so monster, you should work that in. It seemed like someone like this would make a great DM, being full of ideas. It would also give him a chance to play lots of different characters. Turns out these wanting to try everything qualities made him into a very frustrating DM. So first session we go into a evil wizard tower full of traps, and we fight our way through. Pretty good first adventure. It ends with us catching the wizard and him giving us some plot hooks for our next adventure. So far Pat is doing a great job as DM. Next session, as we leave the tower, a evil witch comes up to us, sends some of her minions after, then tells us she is up some ritual thing and disappears. We choose to chase her down though a undead filled swamp which ended just before a final fight with her. We ran out of time. This quest had nothing to do with the hooks from the wizard tower from the last session and all seemed kinda random, but I guess he wanted the adventure to go somewhere new and had trouble bringing us cleanly into his new campaign idea, but now that we are on track. This enemy was cool and it's clear sailing from here. Next session before we fight her in a final showdown she escapes through a portal to another dimension. We follow and go through the portal ourselves, but can't find her. Instead we are in a desert setting where we meet a large group of halflings archaeologists uncovering a ancient bad city which we go and help them by exploring a more dangerous area of the half-buried city. I'm wondering how this ties into the witch lady, but it's pretty cool. Next session we run immediately into a machine that sends us to yet another plane. We end in the middle of a Colosseum for gladiatory games, where we are forced to fight. Though the session we are about halfway through all the fights, in order to win the games and earn our freedom, but we run out of time. At this point I'm getting kinda annoyed with all the plane hopping, and I have a feeling Pat will get bored of these games, and we won't be finishing them. Next session for some quickly explained reasons we are free to go. No more gladiator games. Pat built a map of the city we now find ourselves in with lots of locations to explore. You can tell he put lots of work into it. We end up getting jobs as detectives and follow clues of a serial killer, and on the trail we end up fighting local gangsters. Next session we start at the bar we just had a fight in the session before with the gangsters. We find a secret tunnel in the bar leading to a secret underground system full of slimes and cubes and junk like, and that was a last session. It was such a weird game. It felt like 6 one-shots that we got 2/3s the way though. After every session Pat would be bored with the story he made for us and would railroad us into a new one, never letting us finish anything ever. We kept hearing about other new BBEG, but we never got to fight them. We never got to find out what was going on or solve any mysteries. The real issue is how much work you could tell Pat was putting into prep. There seemed to be cool idea, he just always got bored with them before we could actually run them to their end. TLDR, we never got to finish any adventure because between every session the DM would railroad the party into a new adventure with different setting, themes and BBEGs by often putting magic portals to new planes at the start of the session. Rage quit, and whose fault was it? There was a magic day last month where everything just went the right way and I ended up meeting with one of my favorite authors, also one of the guys that created the biggest system here in my country, and he encouraged me to get back into DMing. So I asked some friends and got a group together to play over Discord. Since my girlfriend lives with me but all the others live very far apart, we are playing Tormentor Tempest on a loose translationer system that is much like Pathfinder 3.5, redone with a twist, and its own setting also. The group consisted initially of my girlfriend Cleric, my brother-in-law Sorcerer, and a couple of friends, a swashbuckler and a rogue. Both told me they were fairly new / never played before, but I've told them it was no big deal being new on a group with veterans. Turns out that my brother-in-law used to DM a homebrew system based on D&D, but never told anyone. So my girlfriend thought she knew the rules, so in the end they were all new players basically. Not a big deal, since new players tend to be less troublesome than players with bad habits and such. Except that even Tuffy knew nothing about the rules. My brother-in-law acted like he was familiar with it, and you know how pride can get in the way of learning. Again, no big deal. He wasn't much of a problem, and played his sorcerer like an edgy necromancer, but without disrupting the game. I set up channels on Discord to accommodate the story arcs, and an extra one for off-topic chat and stuff, and things were going pretty well. I forgot to mention, other than DM, my brother-in-law loved to maximizing his characters. Girlfriend had warned me about it before. Also, every time we talked about TTRPG he always brought up his newest combo and all that stuff. But I'm a little bit of a seasoned DM. Even tough I was out of the game for like a decade, I could still pull off some tactics to balance the game without crippling his creativity. The reason I told you that is that, because of his style of gaming, he ended up with a sorcerer that had 11 AC and 9 HP on a game that likes to hit very hard and warns about it during the character creation. As I've said, it's based on D&D 3.5, but it's tuned to be way more brutal, so the characters are given more hit points and a couple of bonuses to survive better. I look at his character sheet and messaged him about how likely it was that he would end up dead very soon. He said he didn't cared. And to prove it, he rolled another tune, even before we started playing. Just in case he died. We started everything pretty well. He kept trying to be edgy and dark. But everyone were just having fun and trying to learn the ropes. So he was left alone most of the time. Of course, despite my warnings. Came the day where the dices deemed him unworthy and a critical hit put an end to his sorcerer career. I felt awful. The group almost made it trough the first arc, but fate had claimed a player. I apologized to him. It wasn't fun to have someone die so soon. But he said it was okay. He was just unlucky. Next time he'll hear my advice and make someone more balanced to survive instead of a glass cannon. He laughed about it a bit and iced to roll yet another tune. This time a rogue another one. I kept the game going and told him to let me know when he was ready to join again. And when he told me, I warned him that he would show up next scene. He tells me he wants to hide. So I made him roll and then asked everyone for a perception roll and everyone fails. So he sits there in the dark while the party passes by and then says I'll follow them, to which my reply was why. We had agreed beforehand that his character was looking for someone and it wouldn't make sense for him to just follow random people in broad daylight for no good reason at all. That's when he went onto the off-topic channel and said it's my damn character and I do what the fuck I want. That's where I drew the line. I made a couple of directives when decided to DM again, and they were to never deny a player his action and to always be fair. But as a friend and DM to my D&D table told me sometime you'll have to learn to say no. And that was it for me. I could not for the life of me just allow someone to do something based on fuck it. It's my character, I don't have to make sense. So I try and reason with him. Look, you can't do it like that. If they catch you and ask why are you following them, what are you going to say? He didn't care. Okay, then just come up with a reason real quick to follow them. He didn't. Okay, so instead of following them just for the sake of joining the party, why don't you proceeded to present him with 3 options that would make sense in game? He denied it. So I just told him, you know what? Let's just introduce you a little bit forward then. And then he quit the game. He vanished for a few days and then told me his classes were taking all his time and he wouldn't play anymore. His sister tried to talk to him, but he was adamant and she gave up also. The game is doing great. We are having tons of fun. Some other friends joined in. But I can't get past that incident. What cold have I done to avoid the whole situation? I keep telling myself that I was firm but fair. That he cold been more flexible and for once not trying to be all dark and broody and shit. But I still feel I was wrong in some way. I would really like to hear some help from you guys. Thanks in advance just for putting up with the long text.